I am not sure what this says about me or the show, but the most interesting moments in the last few episodes of Amphibia were when we got to see the new intro, which is 90% similar to the other intro, but there are two shots in which our kind, gentle, innocent Marcy has been replaced by Dark Marcy, or Darcy as she is called. Admittedly, Marcy is not actually that innocent. She's a much more complicated character than that, and I wish a lot of people in the fandom would acknowledge that. I love her for these complexities. For the fact that she feels trapped and she just does the only thing she can think of to try and get her out of this situation, which is to take the box and try and get the three of them to a distant world. But even considering how Marcy departs from this perfect little image that a lot of fans initially had of her, it is a vast departure from the person she was into this cackling, callous hive mind that Andrea serves, the core. So this terrifying picture of Darcy in the intro really demonstrates where the actual tension and anxiety and drama of the show really lies, while we keep spending a lot of time with Anne and the Planters as they go on fun and lighthearted and incessantly cheerful adventures there on Earth. The mid-season finale is next week. Something big is going to happen there, and I hope it addresses this discrepancy. Now, I know Matt Brawley said it was not intended as the mid-season finale, and it only became the mid-season finale because of a lot of internal hijinks in the Disney Corporation. Basically, they don't want to air anything that's original programming in the month of December. So what was supposed to be the Season 3 mid-season finale got attached to the first episode of the second half of the season, which will air in maybe 4 or 5 months. Likely the show will not be premiering its final half season until spring at the earliest. So for all practical purposes, Froggy Little Christmas, the upcoming Christmas special, is the mid-season finale, so we should treat it as such. And this would be a perfect time for Anne to have to confront the disappearance of her friends, which she has constantly refused to think about. Andreas has been planning an invasion since the end of Season 2, and now we are almost 10 episodes later, so it would be an interesting time to actually show that invasion, and perhaps have Darcy lead it, thus placing Anne into a situation where she has to directly confront her old friend. As for the episodes we actually got this week, Hollywood Hop Pop, and If You Give a Frog a Cookie, the latter of which is somewhat confusingly named considering cookies only play a semi-significant role in the episode, I'm going to try to be positive, because I feel like my commentary on Season 3 has been quite negative as a whole. And admittedly, there is a reason for that. I continue to be baffled by the show's decision to ignore the darker consequences of the end of Season 2 and Anne returning home after half a year without her friends in favor of more enjoyable, mostly, but also trite and superficial, lighthearted adventures with the Planters. These lighthearted adventures are a bit stale even by the standards of the show. At least in those earlier seasons when we got these adventures, there was a sense that we were gaining a deeper understanding of these characters and the relationships between them, or the community of Wardwood, or this world as a whole, but there's not really any of that here on Earth. And it's not as exciting because, well, Earth isn't as exciting, at least not to us, the people who are from here. I'm just unspeakably baffled, and I believe the show has, to a certain degree, squandered its opportunity to enshrine itself in the pantheon of the all-time great animated television shows of this decade through all these distracting and kind of banal episodes. But I'm sure y'all have heard me complain enough about that, so I'll try not to do that here. Instead, I'll try to give a more neutral take on these episodes as actual episodes, as works of art in of themselves, and not as they function in a structure I'm personally not a big fan of. The Earth episodes are, as a whole, paradoxically less grounded than the Amphibia episodes, and more prone to a lot of wild and bizarre adventures that do not really rely on any sense of consistency or logic. And not in the sense that it's intentionally going against what we consider logical in order to get at a deeper truth, which can be true of a lot of great art, but in the sense that it's just kind of contrived. Conflicts are randomly made up and then resolved without any sense or reason or clarity. Mr. X comes back after being gone for a couple episodes, but he's as goofy and non-threatening as ever, and he loses again and is embarrassed again by the end of the episode. The planters suddenly have this burning desire to return home to Amphibia, even though that is not something we saw at all in earlier episodes, and in fact, Anne seemed to be the one who was far more passionate to go back to Amphibia. How does Hop Pop become a famous star overnight? Like, I don't need this to be the most realistic description of Hollywood, but I want to feel that the episode is just not being senselessly contrived just for cheap drama. And why does Anne insist on telling the planters to keep a low profile when she has gone on so many wild adventures with them, including her adventure with Sprig on his birthday, where they did all sorts of crazy stuff, even after the confrontation with Mr. X? Who knows? The show doesn't really expect you to care. And that's a little bit disappointing, because so often, even in more lighthearted episodes in the past, the show did expect you to care. It was in the process of actually creating this real, tangible, palpable world, and these interesting relationships between characters. As for the Hop Pop episode, I don't understand why we're still spending time on Hop Pop's acting career, which has already been treated with a lot of episodes in the past, and this one doesn't really add anything to what we know about Hop Pop and his relationship with acting. In fact, I think it's quite inferior to the Hop Pop acting episode we got back in Season 2. And what meager attempts at character growth might have been offered at the end of this episode are squandered when Hop Pop demonstrates that he's learned nothing and just wants to become a director instead. The If You Give a Frog a Cookie episode is a little better, and it has a plot function, but that doesn't make it a good episode. It's below average at best. I don't find the jokes that funny this time, and the conflict feels kind of cheap. I think there's a lot more they could have done with the evil scientist figure. Even her design is not as imaginative as a lot of other designs we've seen in this show. I do like the blue-haired scientist assistant. But the gag of the planters guilt-tripping Anne gets old quick, and it demonstrates that neither of them, Anne or the planter, seem to have grown to the extent that the show has hitherto made clear that they have. It's just kind of confusing at best, and inert at worst. But the Christmas episode could possibly change a lot of this. I love Christmas episodes, especially when they contain a little dose of melancholy. That doesn't mean you have to go full Dostoevsky, or even to the extent of something like It's a Wonderful Life, which is dark as well as sweet and beautiful. But I would like to see at least a little bit of Anne here in the midst of all this festivity and happiness and community have to contemplate the fact that she's not with the people she really misses. Anne, Sasha, and Marcy should all be together, and they're not. And that can become particularly acute at Christmas time, a time that's sensibly all about community and togetherness. People laying down their burdens and trying to enjoy themselves together. Obviously, a Christmas episode in Los Angeles where there's no snow or more somber weather is going to feel different than a Christmas episode elsewhere. But I really hope that we do get Anne having to contemplate a lot of what she has steadfastly refused to consider before in regards to her bonds with her friends, how those bonds have been broken, and the sorrows and dangers that have befallen her friends since she left them behind. She went to Earth and they didn't. Again, this is the mid-season finale. If Anne is going to be forced to confront the specters of her friends and how much she misses them and how alone she feels without them, even despite her complicated feelings toward her friends, this Christmas episode would be the perfect time. So I really hope they do that. And having Darcy invade, and thus forcing Anne to reckon with what happened to Marcy, would be a great structure for forcing her to look earnestly and bluntly at what has happened to her friends, especially Marcy. I hope the show goes that route. It could be quite interesting. And it would make for a fascinating mid-season finale, which I really hope we get. But who knows at this point. So anyway, thank you all for watching. If you liked what you saw today, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Donate to my Patreon if you can and you want to see more videos like this. What do you think is going to happen to Darcy? Do you think Anne will meet her? If so, how will that meeting proceed? Will Sasha meet Darcy? What is happening to Sasha? What do y'all think? Sound off in the comments. I'm interested. Anyway, tune in soon for my next analysis. It will be coming soon. Thank y'all again. Adios, comrades.